One of the ways that we're also kind of engaging in that faith development process, discipleship, is through Ritter. You've been hearing a little bit about Ritter since we began last September. It's been a year now, and we have this awesome Ritter team. We meet regularly and laugh and sometimes cry and have fun together. And we want to give you these Ritter moments of Ritter impact. And this morning, one of our team members, Jeff Tolsma, is going to be sharing a little bit about how this process has impacted him.
Morning. I'm Jeff Tolsma, and I am a member of the ARC Ritter team. Over the next several weeks, the members of the ARC Ritter team will each briefly share with you their experience and learnings with the Ritter process. As Elizabeth said, you've heard bits and pieces about this over the past many months, and this previous weekend, the Ritter team attended its second Ritter event in Sioux Falls. Prior to that workshop, the Ritter team had decided it was appropriate we begin to share some of our learnings and experiences with you. As the slide says, the Ritter process is a journey of personal and congregational transformation. And congregational transformation begins with personal transformation. So let me quickly walk you through a small piece of this personal transformation process, assuming I know how to run this thing. And apparently I don't. If you recall, some months ago, Pastors Elizabeth and Mike preached a series on the Ritter mental model of discipleship and its implications. And you may ask, what is a mental model, or how are we defining what is a mental model? To refresh your memory, I keep going backwards, not forwards, sorry. To refresh your memory, a mental model is a set of deeply held beliefs and assumptions about how the world works and how to take effective action in it. As an example, I'll let you just forward them since I clearly keep going backwards. There's a fundamental distinction between a church member versus being a follower of Jesus. In addition, I think it is safe to say that there is a different mental model behind each of those statements regarding church participation or discipleship. Now we'll go to the next one. And we have been learning through the Ritter process a new mental model of discipleship. Next slide, please. And this new mental model of discipleship has three principal and very integrated elements: radical obedience, authentic community, and a reflective life. It is these elements that Pastors Elizabeth and Michael used as their first sermon series and preached on a few months ago. This model of discipleship is quote-unquote done by intentionally living out each one of these integrated elements. It is through this process that each of us intentionally living out this model that one begins to become personally transformed and begins the journey of living into being or achieving God's preferred future for our lives. And in parallel, we in turn as a congregation become transformed to achieve God's preferred future for us. This personal and congregational transformation process at some level begins with asking yourself this question: what are you present to? Or maybe phrased another way, how do you show up in various situations or with the various people you come in contact with? So in my case, how do I show up at work? At home with my wife Sarah, with my children, Ellen, Joseph, and Daniel, with my friends? How do I show up at church? With strangers? How do I treat people I work for? How do I treat people who work for me? How do I treat people who serve me? How do I treat people who think or believe or act different than me? Etc. The list goes on. And let me provide you a recent world example from my life. A few weeks ago, I recently had a conversation with the general manager, my boss, at work. I am in human resources and currently work for Gelita, the leading global manufacturer of gelatin. Paid advertisement. I have been doing work in HR for over 30 years. This conversation revolved around our plan to establish a local employment arrangement for a person currently on an international assignment in the U.S. And I have done this type of work numerous times with numerous different people throughout my career. But this particular one has a little bit of political ramifications with the international headquarters in Germany, and it's also with some local sensitivities. So during this discussion, my boss started telling me and being a little critical of the work that I'd already done and kind of at a fairly elemental level, telling me what I needed to do and how I needed to do it. I immediately got defensive, and I started arguing. Not a good thing to do with your boss. Now, as that conversation continued, I eventually calmed down, and eventually the discussion ended. Now, that night, using the learnings from Ritter, the model that you just saw, I asked myself, why did I become defensive? In other words, what was I present to? How and why did I show up to that conversation the way I did? This is what I learned. Through the Ritter process of reflecting back on my life, I was seldom ever recognized or rewarded for being smart. My brother was the smart one. I was the athletic, funny, good-looking one. Case proved. As such, I would often reach my goals in my life by athleticism or charm or wit or humor. In fact, I was frequently rewarded for that behavior. However, as I got older, I developed an oversensitivity when I feel that I'm not being recognized as smart or when I feel I'm not being taken seriously. So in this situation with my boss, he triggered some of those things in me. However, it was unbeknownst to him. He had no idea that that was true for me. So the next day, I asked to see him, and I told him that I valued our working relationship, and I owed him an apology for my behavior and for the way I responded to his comments and questioning. He had no idea. Didn't bother him a bit. But I explained how I interpret what he said and why I reacted the way I did. In other words, I decided to show up or be present in a new and different way. I owned my behavior. He sincerely thanked me for my honesty and told me that in no way had he intended to offend me, but more importantly, he sincerely expressed how appreciative he was with my level of openness and vulnerability, and that I cared enough about our relationship to confront the issue and confront my behavior. And we both committed to both doing better going forward. So, to oversimplify this mental model of discipleship, because believe me, it does entail a journey of intentionally taking the time to reflect, listen, and be open to doing the hard work of owning, excuse my French, the crap in your life, which, no surprise to those who know me, Sarah, Daniel, I have a lot. And if you don't believe me, ask them. They've been fully witness it for a lot of years. And to really fully understand who you are. And then holding that person up, who you are, that person, against a mirror of what God's preferred future or vision for you would look like. And then within an authentic community of people who are also going through that transformational process of their own, live into God's preferred future and calling for your life and for the church. Simple, right? Anyway, that's part of the journey. So lastly, thank you for your support of those of us on the Ritter team. We sincerely appreciate your willingness to support us on this journey as we strive to live out the values of ARC: acceptance, grace, wisdom, and love. Because through this process, we can be transformed by Jesus to transform the world. Thank you.